Welcome at another episode of Silicon Minds Human Hearts. Today we're going to talk with a professor from Oxford University with Mr. Ajit. Thank you for joining us, Ajit, today. I'm glad to have a conversation with you. Could you please introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you for having me here. And my name is Ajit Jaokar. I teach various AI courses at the University of Oxford. And we are looking at a range of things which kind of look at the whole spectrum of AI, from development to the more low code and more empowering ways of AI within that.
Okay. Well, let's go a little bit more into how Oxford and AI is combining. Of course, there's courses maybe linked to that already. Have you been seeing an increase of the number of students who want to learn more about AI?
Oh, of course. I mean, this is just across the board, I think. I think people have recognized, both for good or bad, that AI is a fundamental change and transformation of everything from skills to economies to jobs, etc., etc. And I think in many ways, AI is actually impacting the developer's role the most. Which is ironic. It's almost like biting the hand that feeds kind of stuff, which is saying that the people who build AI are the people who are likely to be most impacted by AI. And I think that there is a certain acceptance of people that change is coming. And that's why we see a general movement towards reskilling, if I can call it that.
Are students aware of how AI is changing the world?
Yes and no. I think that when you say how AI is changing the world, you can break this question down into different things, correct? So first of all, how do you define AI in the first place? And that generally is in the sense of having machines to perform a task at a human level ability, correct? So this is a broadly accepted definition of AI. When you look at it like that, everybody is aware that it is changing, but they're not aware of where that spectrum is, whether that is just a straightforward, simple algorithm, or that's a complete autonomous thing with that. We are probably leaning more towards the latter. So we are looking, from Oxford's perspective, my perspective, we're looking more about how autonomy happens. So how AI becomes more and more capable of building something. So we look at autonomous AI agents, we look at all that sort of subjects. We also look at how AI impacts creative people, for example, people like you actually. So what would it mean to have AI? I saw yesterday YouTube has announced a whole bunch of different AI-enabled tools to help creators. What does it mean for a creator? And then how does it empower them? So we look at it from an empowering point of view for professionals to take AI. And this is generally my focus.
Okay. Now, AI is being implemented in many industries. How is the university implementing AI within its own organization?
Right. Partly, I'm not the best person to answer that because I'm very much on the teaching side of AI. And also, a university like Oxford or MIT or Cambridge or Harvard, they are very big, correct? And they are also subdivided into different things, and everybody is doing their own things in different ways. I can rephrase the question of how AI can be used for teaching, and I think that that's a hugely interesting thing for a number of areas. The first one is the fact that you can use AI from an assistant or a co-pilot mode. Now Microsoft calls it co-pilot, we call it whatever. I mean, you can call it any form of assistant. But the principle is the same, that you will have a very democratized, personalized AI to assist you in your journey, which could also mean in the journey of your evaluation. So at the moment you have a drop-down exam, correct? I mean, I come from India, and if you look at China also has the famous exam. I forget the name of it. Gaokao, I think. And the point is that it's a make or break thing, correct? As a young person, I feel that it's extremely intimidating. But I think that the future could be quite different. That you could then work with AI who will empower you and enrich your knowledge base and your evaluation capabilities. So I would come as an employee or a potential candidate to somebody. I would show my journey. I would not have a Boolean thing, a Boolean meaning yes or no, saying that this is it or this is not. I would say that I started here and this is what I learned, and this is how my journey was. And it's a little bit like Elon Musk's question for recruitment. He said, I don't ask people what you do or what you have done. I asked you how you solved the problem, correct? And what were the struggles you faced to that. If I'm able to document my entire journey in this way with the help of AI, I think that's a very powerful CV in a way. This is how I see education being transformed, and also the fact of what we are focused on, specifically my course, is to look at how AI can be used to generate code, because that's one of the very big things which is happening today. So people look at AI generating language, but AI generating code is a hugely powerful thing, and it's also empowering and also a threat. So empowering because I can bring in a domain expert and translate them into conceptually an AI person, meaning that they can build an AI application with the help of AI. And we've actually had a great success with this. So we had a doctor from NHS, Dr. Chougule, who is a professional doctor, and he came and he learned this, and he then went and implemented something within his practice with that. We've also had a fireman from Iceland, literally a fireman from Iceland. He came to us and he approached us for the low-code course, and then he went ahead and went back to Reykjavik, and then he took feeds from the volcano, and he's doing something with the Icelandic government based on a course at Oxford. Of course, we've worked with him. We've stayed in touch with him, but I think it's all his initiative in doing that, and I think that this is extremely empowering as a teacher, somebody like this is the sort of thing which education should do, should transform your life. It should have an outcome. It shouldn't be just like I did an exam and then I'm there, but that's not what it is. No.
I think that point is already quite interesting, because for me, a perspective of a university is like all research, purely research, a lot of writing code and building new stuff. But I find it very interesting that Oxford is also looking into low code.
Oh, yes.
Because these days we have a lot of low-code products that are very powerful to build in a very short time something very useful, and that you're also teaching that.
Absolutely.
Pretty cool.
Absolutely. And this is exactly what I said to you. I mean, that is the thing. To me, I find it extremely empowering that I'm able to take somebody who has domain knowledge and then translate them. I'm not saying that they become a data scientist. I'm not saying that even they replace a data scientist. I'm just saying that they have a certain level of knowledge, and that knowledge can then be translated into a system of some kind. And I believe that this capability will get better. That this capability of taking somebody who has domain knowledge, translate them into a system, is extremely empowering, and it will get better. And I think that to me, that the bit you said about education, it's a lifelong thing, correct? I mean, there is a quote from Ray Bradbury which says that education, the only the route to education should be to lead you to the library. What he's trying to say is that it's an avenue what you study, but where you want to end up with is your own exploration, which is in the library, and that's a very open-ended term, whichever your library is, wherever you're going to assimilate knowledge from. So this is how we see AI.
It's a non-ending tree.
And
can go all kinds of directions and come back and follow another direction. You were talking about AI that writes code. We see, for example, the GitHub Copilot who does those things, and there's other models who can do that. Where do you think the danger is that we have AI that builds AI models and starts writing its own thoughts and its own applications, fully autonomous, and even start doing things that maybe we don't want?
Right. So the way I see AI and any of these tools are to assist the human expert. So in that sense, we are almost never, currently at least, talking about the output of AI being directly available to the end user. So it's the output of AI being enriching the expert. The end expert is the one who engages with the end user. This is the flow I'm typically looking at. Now, that's not a permanent state of affairs. So if you look at some of the work around autonomous AI agents, and we also have a course on autonomous AI agents now, which talks about the idea that obviously that's where the biggest impact of AI will be. So an autonomous AI agent, in the very simplest terms, is I define a task at a higher level of abstraction. Correct. So I say that I want to book a holiday to Greece or Kenya, yes, but I don't tell it how to do it. So it then breaks the task into subtasks and then somehow autonomously executes all those tasks to achieve the end result. Now, that's where some question marks would be. And this is still not fully with us yet, that this idea of having autonomous AI agents. But currently, even an autonomous AI agent, I think, would still be an assistant to an expert. So I still think AI is an assistant to the expert. In terms of your question about code, what I think is that, and we have for the first time in our course on AI, a session only on software engineering, correct? So software engineering is the subject you learn if you learn computer science, always. But that subject has changed so much over the last few years. And the beauty of that, in a way, is that it's going to change even more. So the question is, how would software engineering change if 80% of my code is generated by AI? So then your thought process is different now. So now you're thinking, how do I test this stuff? How do I integrate this stuff? How do I trust it? How do I put computational thinking behind it? So these are the higher level thought processes which you as a developer are going to go to. And I'm not saying that the process is going to be smooth. I'm going to say that it's definitely going to be disruptive to people. And I guess one of my objectives in doing something like this is to raise awareness of that, not just from a course point of view, but from a general point of view. But I just feel that there is a certain amount of cognitive dissonance in people to think that I am immune, I am good, I am immune. I just think no one is, including me. So I think that it should be technically possible to duplicate an AI completely to teach a session. Rightly or wrongly. So, I mean, my role as a teacher becomes now more about interaction and making sure that I create that conversation and get that sort of, at Oxford, what we call as the, at Oxford, it's more the Oxford tutorial mindset, which means that you are thinking that the student to think in terms of critical thinking. So this is then becomes my role, not to tell that do this, because that's the AI is probably better at me than doing.
It's about how can I get it done.
True.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Now, AI, you teach AI, but how do you use AI in your personal life?
I think I try to use AI in my personal life as many different ways as I can. I'm a big fan of OpenAI and ChatGPT and stuff like that. And the incredible thing is, the questions I have asked ChatGPT, I mean, it's a intellectual partner for me, because as from what I do, I definitely need that. I need people to ask questions and get feedback on. And of course, I have to judge how sensible that is. The most abstract question I've asked is, it isn't related to my teaching, I must say. The question is that if you are in a singularity, that is when you have space and time which is compressed, what still remains afterwards? Correct? What is possible when there is no space and time is effectively the sort of.
It's not an easy question to answer.
It's not but it's a very interesting answer I got from it, and it's got a whole bunch of stuff there. One of them was mathematics. It said that mathematical concept would remain past the singularity. So my question was, okay, which mathematical concepts would remain? And it came up with a pretty coherent answer, which is interesting in terms of number theory, in terms of certain things. Because certain things would still not change, because you would still have that. And that is a very abstract question to ask, and to get a coherent answer. And I put it on LinkedIn, and nobody has said that the answer is stupid, which I wouldn't have also thought about the answer myself. And there are obviously people who talk about consciousness and stuff like that, which I didn't want to necessarily get into. But I was thinking more about actual mathematical concepts which would exist past a singularity, past if you didn't have space and time, which were combined as we know today.
AI is changing rapidly. I think if you look at the last 2 years, where we come from and where we are today, what do you expect in the next couple of months, years?
Okay. So one of the things I shared about, and I got a lot of thoughts about it even last night, was about how to be human in the age of AI, correct? And the way I looked at it is that what defines humanity as we look at it today is culture, correct? Culture. And culture comprises of a whole bunch of things. That includes your sort of regions where you come from, your language, your religion, the artifacts you create, the social practices you have, and then culture gets transmitted from one generation to another. But culture also evolves, correct? So if you look at this idea that there is the culture in human society, and that culture is at the moment not uniform, and that culture is itself evolving. But then what would happen if you bring AI into that evolution of the human culture simultaneously? And I shared some interesting books with that. One was a book called Humankind, which talked about, which is the opposite of the Lord of the Flies, Golding's Lord of the Flies, which talks about the sort of the dystopian nature of people if they are put in a situation which is unusual. But this talks about kindness and how humans could be kind and help each other and build up us as a society with that. I also talked about another book. I used books. I used about 20 or 30 books, which I personally read, and I read a lot of physical books. And one other book is called Metazoa, which I think is the same book, two books by the same author, but they talk about the brain of the octopus. The brain of the octopus is not a single thing. It's actually across the body of the octopus. And evolution has treated the octopus very differently from anything else. And the question is that the evolution could be non-linear. The way what we see today is not necessarily the way it could evolve. And this is one of the biggest questions with AI, I think, is the fact that how it would change culture and how it would change culture which is unique to different people. If you look at the Finnish culture, there is a Kalevala, which is the epic poem from the Finnish culture. In India, there is a Bhagavad Gita. In China, there is the Tao Te Ching or Art of War. So every part of the world had its own unique cultural lens, and this cultural lens is going to change. And in the end, the only thing which is needed for people, in my opinion, is for yourself to do your own thinking. This is the lens. So in my lens, the books I read are my framework or my lens to understand this or to interpret or analyze it and assimilate this knowledge. And for somebody else, it could be books, it could be TikTok. I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not judging it. I'm just saying that this is my thought on how I would interpret being human in the age of AI. Only thing I would say is that I think we should look at the past and the future, both. So it is very important to look at the classical books. So this is why I talked about some of the older books in that regard, including the Brothers Karamazov, which I have not fully read, I must admit. But I'm trying with the help of ChatGPT. I'm trying to understand, and it's not that hard. You ask ChatGPT, break down each chapter, tell me the important things, tell me the big stories, tell me the characters, and you sort of understand what's happening instead of looking at a very large book and trying to go page by page, which is going to be very hard for me at this point. But I think that level of thinking is needed to look at our history and look at our culture, to look at where this culture is going in that regard.
I think it's quite correct what you're saying, Links, that depending on what culture you're part of, that you will be more adaptable to more newer technology than others.
True.
Something I also read was like how the Japanese culture is way more adaptable to new technology, also because of the historical and the methodology that they had compared to methodology or religion that we had here in Europe. So that's
correct. I mean, if you look at the Japanese culture specifically, there is a Meiji period, correct? So they call that. So there was a period when Japan was completely isolated. And then there was the opening up of Japan, I think in the 1850s or something. I'm not exactly sure about the date. But then over that few decades, it rapidly modernized beyond that. And this may be in their DNA now, correct? That the assimilation of technology to improve yourself, and you find the same in China as well, in that acceptance, and it is not uniform in any way. So this is, you're right. Yeah.
Now, as last question, what advice could you give our public? What do we need to start looking into, or where should we put at least some focus on?
Sure. I think what you should look at, there are two things. First of all, I think you should think for yourself, correct? So don't look at what the media says. Don't look at this Terminator view of AI, correct? If anybody who is building that knows that it's not, it's a dystopian view. And it's also a view propagated by many people for an agenda, correct? So they have a regulatory agenda, they have a consulting agenda, correct? So they might be sort of scaring people and trying to go to organizations and saying, I can fix this problem for you. So I think that the first thing is to think for yourself. The second thing is to look at where your skills are going to go, where your industry is going to go. And I think to accept that. I am a big fan of both AI and humanity. So if you look at humanity, I think people have done incredibly well. I mean, look at COVID, correct? I mean, there's a lot of bad things, a lot of good things as well. People came together, people created vaccines. Someone like Oxford, which is UK, is a relatively small country. We had one of the two top vaccines. The Pfizer one. The Pfizer one was not ours, but the other one, the other vaccine was from the UK, from Oxford. And I think that people came together. Something happened and something changed and something moved forward from there. And this is something I think that is inbuilt within us. So we shouldn't try to think that we are powerless or we can't do anything. So if anything, I like the empowering potential of AI.
So think and work together. Thank you very much, Ajit, for this.
Pleasure to meet you, and thank you for inviting me here. And I hope your readers benefit or your listeners benefit.
For sure they will do. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.